Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Pirate 2025 experience. If you haven't seen my last one, it's the Pirate 2024 experience, and that is where I created this musketeer here, Pedro, and I went from level 1 to level 70. I talked about each world and everything I did, and now Pirate101 has free membership until May 28th. So we're going to continue the saga with Simbad Part 1, Part 2, Part 3, Tardus, and Croctopia, and I think that's it. I think that's all the new content. So we're going to be doing that on Pedro the Musketeer to continue the saga, and we'll be all caught up with the Pirate 101 mainline story on Pedro the Musketeer. So let's get started. To continue my tradition from the last iteration of this video, let's go over my gear. My gear isn't going to change throughout this whole thing because this is just my build. So I'll go through it this one time and then we will start the festivities. So let's start with the hat. I use Santorana's hat. For the robe, I use the Bellatrix Underworld garb. Otherwise, I'd be using Artemis's Underworld garb. For boots, I am running the Artemis Underworld boots. It's for the rank of Overwatch. My pet is an Overwatch Burst pet, which are the two important things, but then I also have Witch Hunter and Elusive, which I really like. For the weapon, I am running Shooty Staffy for this build, and this is the Mojo Shooter, which gives the heal. Otherwise, if I didn't have one of the Overwatch pieces, it would be Darkmoor Death Splitter, or if I wanted a 5-range pure Shooty, it would be the Simbad's Long Gun. For the eye patch, I'm just using Smuggler's Cowl, otherwise I'd be using the Simbad's Gallant Stripes. Totem, I am using the Jewel of Wu Manchu, which gives a ton of accuracy and some cannonballs. Otherwise, I'd probably be using the Apprentice Charm or the Simbad Silver Trinket for Readied Spell 3. For the charm, I am running the Bresciani Chain, I think that's how you say it. It gives Quick Adjust and True Grit, and then also a ton of accuracy. Otherwise, I'd probably be using a Sniper Shot necklace. And then finally for the ring, I am using the Bresciani Loop, which I believe this is like the rare one. I got this from the daily missions in the party barge. Otherwise, it says it can be farmed from Kane, but I personally didn't get it after like a couple hundred runs. But this also gives a ton of accuracy, Quick Adjust, and True Grit, just like the Bresciani Chain. It's for the rank of True Grit mostly. Otherwise, I'd probably be using the Ring of Zeus for an extra powerful AoE. As for my companion setup, I will be running Old Scratch in the first slot, Gracie Conrad in the second slot, and then Chantel in the third slot. Otherwise, I'd probably swap in Bonnie for Gracie at some points, but we'll see how this goes. And yeah, let's get started by talking to Albino. All right, so I'm actually going to take this a little bit slower than the 2024 video, but we start off with speaking to Albino, who is a part of Simbad's crew, and he tells us that he was captured by the Crustacean and the Crustaceans clan. So basically all of Simbad Part 1 is just this one dungeon where we fight a few bosses, as you can see on screen as we go through this. And yeah, it ends with this big brawl between all the bosses that we fought, plus some of Simbad's troops, and basically just versus us. It's like a 16v4, I think. It's a pretty fun solo to do. It's not the worst now that we have newer gear, but definitely at the time when it came out, it was pretty difficult. And yeah, I pretty much just soloed this on my Musketeer. With Overwatch 5 and smart plays and things that can stop the enemy, it's not the worst. I actually didn't get anything on this run, which is unfortunate. But after that, we speak to Albino outside the dungeon, where he tells us about the Eye of the Liger, which is an artifact that he thinks that we can get using Simbad's prestige. Because Simbad did betray Albino here, so he wants to kind of get back at him. And then that takes us to Simbad Part 2. I told you it was short. So Simbad Part 2 also starts with Albino, and he tells us that he had heard from some of his colleagues that Simbad was seen in Mushu with the Iron Lotus clan. And so he thinks that this is the best chance for us to not only get Simbad, but also get the Belt of Champions back that he stole from Crustacean, and potentially even get the Eye of the Liger. And once we arrive in Mushu, we actually recruit Albino. He's a privateer, he's pretty cool, he's not that useful. And then we see the wreck of their ship, the Chimera, at this nearby tower. So we suspect that Simbad is in that tower. And then I don't want to get into this dungeon, but it is like 10 or 12 floors of just mob fights and a couple boss fights. It's basically the Tower of Fu Manchu, but I would say more forgiving, maybe. But they don't give the chests, which is unfortunate. But it does end with this confrontation with the Koranshi Khan leader and Simbad and Tetsukado, where we fight them, and then we get our drops. And here Simbad is trying to be all suave and be like, oh, you know, good job for saving me, lads. But Albano was really not feeling his vibe, so they talk, and we talk to Simbad outside, who kind of understands and comes to understand that Albano doesn't want to sail with him anymore, and he wants to sail with us. So Simbad concedes and also decides to sail with us. And then this is where we recruit Simbad. He's a swashbuckler. He's also decent, but that's really it. He's not that good. And then we speak to Mr. Gandry in Avery's Court to end Simbad Part 2 and begin Simbad Part 3. Simbad Part 3, unlike the other two, starts with Mr. Gandry and not Albano. And he basically surmises everything. He gives a big lore drop on everything that happened up until now. And he tells us that a man by the name of Merciless Claw was seen in Zol Akmol, which is on Blood Shoals. And so we go over there, we defeat a couple of their goons, and we speak to a local Aztecan who says that they saw him in a nearby temple. So we go beat up Claw the Merciless when a lieutenant from Marleybone raids us at the same time as us about to fight Claw, and says that he's going to imprison us both. And he says that the Marleybone Crown is actually the one that decided to send their arrest to us. And so he tells us to go to Marleybone and speak to Mycroft. And Mycroft gives this big lore dump about Sherlock Bones and how he died because of Meowie Yardy. And we speak to Meowie Yardy to get his plan and all that. And then we speak to Mycroft Bones' contact. And then we have to do this really boring dungeon that I hate a ton. But it ends with a pretty cool fight where this dude named Wheeler basically got scraps of Rook from the Wreck of the Victory and kind of made it his own. And I actually did end up getting the magic one from that run, which is pretty fun. Then Mycroft Bones tells us to find the Eye of the Liger in a nearby warehouse because Marleybone did seize it from Merciless Claw. We hear from the artifact that it tells us to not go to El Dorado, but Old Scratch recognizes it as a ruse and says that there's some dark hidden mojo behind it. And then that's where it kind of starts off with Tardus. So because there's some spooky mojo involved, we obviously got to speak to Madame Vedima, who tells us that it feels like it resides in hell, the Aquilin hell, Tartarus. And so we go to Aquila and try to find someone who can get us into Tartarus, and we learn about Orpheus, and Orpheus had just gone to Tartarus to try and get Eurydice, I think that's her name, out of Tartarus. He made a deal with Hades, and so now we need someone else who can get us into Tartarus, and that leads us to Virgil. We get a obol from a lieutenant. We give it to Charon. He kind of makes a big deal out of us giving him the obol because we're alive, but luckily we have Old Scratch, who is technically dead. So out of a technicality, Old Scratch giving him the obol and then having us as his passengers just makes it okay. And so he lets us go to Tartarus anyways, just using that like loophole. So we do land in Tartarus, and he tells us that, you know, we're kind of on our own. He's not gonna really help us from here. And I do have to be the bearer of bad news. I actually got so wrapped up in playing Tartarus and soloing it on my Musketeer, I kind of just forgot to record everything past the first fight. So, yeah. But hey, at least there's Croctopia coming up. I recorded a lot for that. So let's go to Croctopia. Croctopia is an interesting world. We start off with speaking to Calico Jake. We don't start off with that, but we end up speaking to Calico Jake because he is our contact to get to Croctopia, and he wants us to get some products for him and speak to one of his manders that he has producing some stuff for him. So that's kind of one of our main goals. Our other main goal is to find the necromancer behind the ruse that was in the Eye of the Liger. And while we're here, we kind of end up helping Marleybone with some conflicts in Croctopia, because not only is Marleybone occupying Croctopia, but Valencia is also occupying Croctopia. And so basically there's an active war going on that we have to kind of help out. And to be fair, we did start this war between the two of them, so it is only fair. But yeah, while this kind of miscellaneous footage is rolling, I think Croctopia is decent. I don't think it's the best. It's obviously not as like up high quality wise as the worlds from before, but it is still interesting. I think they do some fun things with the mechanics. A couple of the fights are harder than they need to be, especially solo, but with 4 people, I mean, things get super easy. But I think, you know, that's pretty tough to balance behind, but I'm not going to defend KI for it. But anyways, a big story thing that happens here is we learn of the Queen of Battles, and they make it seem like it's actually the Queen from Valencia Part 2, but then we learn it's kind of just like a mockery of one. It's just like some random lady who is called the Queen of Battles, which is a little unfortunate, but hey, what can you do? And obviously we beat her up. She's pretty easy. They did nerf the fight. You used to have to survive for the entirety of the time, but then they made it so that you could actually kill her and kind of speed it up, which is nice. After that, we return some ammunition and flares to the Marleybonians, and then we make our way to the second part of Croctopia, because we are in Zigzag. If you remember Zigzag from Wizard City, or from Wizard 101, there's lower Zigzag and upper Zigzag, and we started in lower, now we're in upper, using this little like ship that's behind us, you can kind of see in the footage. But there are some portals and some magic gates that are stopping us from proceeding, so we have to find this crystal and defeat these draconians in order to get access to the pyramid. And with the help of El Toro, we can actually get inside the pyramid, because there was a gate stopping us from getting inside. But there was a loose brick that allowed us to get inside. And we fight some scorpions, we speak to this person Baruti, and then we are off to defeat the guardians of this like lever that we have to switch. And this is one of the hard fights that I'm talking about when it comes to soloing. It's a pretty difficult fight, but luckily with my newer build, it's easier to solo. And then the Baruti lady, she warns us about the evils that are deeper into the pyramid, as we have to ascend to the top in order to stop the necromancer. Simbad messes up the incantation here, which summons the spirits of reprisal. We defeat them, and then Gracie Conrad does the incantation correctly, and then we are off to the last boss before the final dungeon. The final dungeon is a little anticlimactic. It's basically a few mob fights, and then this random draconian that we really have no connection to. And the only really important part about it is Oksana, the necromancer, revealing herself and her plan in this really, really long-winded monologue that at 4 times speed, me listening to the dialogue is like 30 seconds. So it's like 2.5 minutes, including like some of the earlier parts of her monologue. It's pretty long. But yeah, I mean, the final dungeon is just a little bleh. Doesn't really have it. It doesn't have like the final dungeon status to it that I thought it would have around my first time playing it. But after we do that, we speak to Calico Jake again, and we can board our way home back to Flotsam, where Bonnie Ann says she has a plan, which I guess we'll see in the new summer update that allegedly is increasing the level cap to 75. I definitely think that they have the capacity to make something that's high quality and well written. So I definitely think that the summer update has the potential to be pretty good. I might be biting my own tongue here, but yeah, I guess we will see, and I will see you next time.